He was telling me something and he started tearing up and I started tearing up too.
You started
So
tearing up.
that was the only time I've cried on TV.
So the first thing I wanted to ask, right, is because now so many people know Steven Chia, but when you say Steven Chia, in our heads we think, the nice business shirts, right? Because you're always doing news, CNA, Journ, and stuff like that. What do you remember about life before you became CNA Steven Chia?
I don't think I'm too different from the Steven Chia that people know. Life before that, much the same. I guess it's just that there was less publicity. Also because when I first started in this role, I mean, I've been with CNA for about 20 years now. When I first started, social media wasn't as prolific. Things we did mainly went on TV, so the viewership wasn't so large, right? Now with social media, things get shared very easily. So yeah, so that has come with, I guess, more recognition of who I am and the work that I do. But no, I don't think anything's changed. I'm very much the same guy that I was 20 years ago when I started this job.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I remember you in many conversations talking about your school days and how your grades were not the best, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
So I found it very interesting, right? Because the work that you do requires some level of self-confidence, right? To present, to speak.
Yeah.
And one big thing when it comes to grades is not so much, how much you score, but the fact that if you're constantly a poor student, your confidence takes a hit. At that stage of life. Did you feel that when you were getting poor grades?
Okay, it's interesting you mentioned confidence. My job requires confidence, but not so much brain power.
No, it does, it does.
Yes, I was academically challenged, as they would say, and by Singapore standards, not a very good student. I mean, after PSLE, I went to the normal stream. In Sec 2, I got back to Express, but then I went to JC, repeated my first year in JC. I was just not, it just wasn't the way, it just didn't work well for me, it didn't suit me. And each time you sort of fail in that sense, especially by Singapore standards, it does hit you. I feel in Singapore we struggle that in our school system it's very robust, but it's also quite rigid. We're trying to expand and give more experiential learning, but at the same time, so many of us, parents especially, are hooked up on this gotta do well. Like PSLE is a big exam. Like when my kids took PSLE, people are like, wow, PSLE this year. And I'd be like, I'm not taking PSLE. Why am I stressed?
They expect the parent to also be stressed.
But that's wrong. And I think that's the worst thing we can do when a parent says, okay, I'm going to take leave because my kid is taking her PSLE this year. To stay home, nag them, have you done your 10-year series? Have you done? I think that's the worst thing we can do.
That's so interesting. You don't see it as a form of support if a parent is super involved in that. Like, what does that look like to you?
I mean, support is when they were having their PSLE, I'd be like, do you need any help? Are you okay? More like, okay, it's time for a break. What do you want to eat? You can choose anything. We did another story about PSLE. I followed a child around during her year, and she was going from school to tuition, sometimes 2 or 3 different tuitions in a day, and then doing homework for the next day. And then I interviewed one kid. I was like, oh yeah, it's the June holidays. Are you going downstairs to play with your friends? He's like, I want to, but I have nobody to play with.
Aiyo.
I was like, oh man,
No.
that hit me. I was like, oh, what? So I've made a very conscious effort. My wife and I were quite chill parents, but we've made a very conscious effort to say that, look, you guys work hard. We're there to support you. But don't let the grades define you and dictate your life, Because if we just chill a bit as parents, then the system would chill a bit, and then everything would chill a bit. Because, again, think about it, the PSLE you take in Singapore, and the O-levels, it's for Singapore only. And it's tougher than your international version.
Yeah.
Why? Because we keep doing so well. So it's like...
It's the equivalent of if you're working too hard at work, then you get more work because you're the most competent person. After a while, you need to relax a bit, right?
Yeah. But in this case, it's more like you keep doing so well, they make the exam harder.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, very often in our system here, the answer to questions, to discussions are given to you. They're, okay, this should be the answer. But actually, if you think about it, it's like literature. I mean, it's open to interpretation. There's never a definitive answer that it must be this versus... Of course, mathematics 2 plus 2 is 4, And it comes back to life, the way we live. I mean, so much of what we do in life, and when you relate to people, it's not so black and white. There's a lot of grey in the area, and how you negotiate that grey area, how you relate to people, how you persuade them to come onto your side, all these things are such important life skills that I feel that is still lacking in our school system here.
Sorry, I think that was the wrong answer to my question.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
I even forgot
Yes,
what
no
the question-
perfect answers. You're right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So these days, the big thing that people know you for is CNA's Talking Point. People may not know, because this is not so front-facing, that you started your career of producing for other shows. So you were behind the scenes, doing the producing work. So what do you think is the value of working on someone else's show, sort of helping someone else grow before you start stepping in front and being the one in front?
Yeah, I started right down the food chain, with my first job as a production assistant. It was at ESPN, a sports channel, looking through basketball games, writing down the score. Because at that time, nothing was digital, so you had to write the time code. At 2 minutes 3, this was the score, so that when the producer needs it, they can find it easily.
Right.
And then I went on to work as a freelance producer and with a production company as well, working on programs, developing corporate videos. So I think the learning experience is that I got to understand production and the way things work, like all these guys now with the crew and all that. I know, in a way, if I know that this camera is kind of facing me, this is a wider shot and things like that. So it helps with what I'm doing now in terms of presenting. And it helps me know how the whole production cycle works. So I think that's key with any job that you take on, to know how things work. Because how can you be the boss of it? How can you manage or supervise something if you don't actually know what your guys are doing? Well, now many CEOs try and do that, try and spend a few days with their guys on the ground understanding. So yeah, I basically think that allowed me to understand the entire process. And if I were to take on any other job now, I would want to do that. At least go and speak to the people, spend some time with them. Because if you don't know what the guy on the ground right down the food chain is doing, how can you improve things? How can you help them?
Right.
How can you supervise it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey, right? It's not like you suddenly jump from, starting work straight to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there were many moments where you had to figure things out, trial and error along the way. Do you remember any moments in your career where you maybe messed up a little bit?
There's so many.
So many? Okay. We have enough time in this interview. 2-hour-long video. Let's go.
No, the first most, I guess, difficult transition was when I joined CNA. And because the moment I joined, I went on the morning show, which is a live 3-hour TV show. I get in at 5 a.m., I start looking through my notes, and then at 6 a.m., I'm like, okay, I'm going to go change. Then my colleague says, oh, don't you have your wardrobe? I'm like, no, it's in wardrobe. It says, wardrobe department doesn't open till 7:30 in the morning. Like, wow, so you scramble, go and look for security, get the master key, open the door. Luckily, I could find the steward, got it, So can you imagine day one, I'm stressed already.
Yeah.
Like, wow,
Lucky you didn't have to host in your FBTs or whatever, slippers.
So that was the first one. Then during that first week, because it's a 3-hour live show, I was still not entirely familiar with the format. I didn't dare leave the set during the 3 hours at all. Didn't dare go pee because I'm like, commercial break, I don't know how long I have, Let me check the next segment, what's coming up. And then there was one word I remember that I tripped on. I think it was exasperated.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's in the script, but for some reason, I think I said something like exasperated, aspirated. And then I kept getting it wrong, so finally I just skipped it altogether and I went on with the rest of the
It's the
story.
Chinese oral exam
I
mindset.
know,
Don't say it.
But from that, I've also learned that now I always look at my scripts and there's a big word, change it. Exasperated is just frustrated. Why not just say frustrated,
Right.
So,
What happens if you're live already on air, right? A name comes in, you have no time to go and check prono.
Yeah.
What happens? What do you do?
Wing it. You
Wing?
it. Say it with confidence. You just say the name like you know it. Say it like you know it, and then...
That's quite terrifying, right? Because people always say, oh, this word is not pronounced that way because the other day I heard CNA presented, they said it this way, so it has to be that way.
Sometimes we get it wrong too.
Oh my gosh. Now nobody knows how to pronounce anything.
We try to. Most of the time, we do check and try and find out the correct pronunciation. But if it comes in cold at the last minute, yes, we may get it wrong.
I get you, yeah. Your style, right? What people know you for when it comes to Talking Point is that you're so willing to do experiments.
Oh, yeah.
You're also willing to do things like film yourself, right? You have a camera and you are the one walking around and talking. It's funny because the more casual it looks, actually the tougher it can be because you are the one holding and having to talk. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. The organic approach also started because the real episode that kind of took off was when I did this experiment on bubble tea. Yeah, I drank it for, I can't remember, a month or something. So we realized from doing that people like that kind of stuff. And that's when the whole idea of trying more experiments, eating fried chicken, going on an intermittent fasting diet, things like that. And since it's such a personal journey, I mean, it's hard to have the crew with me all the time. So filming on my own became the way to sort of cover that. And we found that people liked it. So when we travel, about 30 to 40% of the stuff we cover is filmed on my phone, me just, And yeah, it's a bit more difficult in the sense that like I have to be a bit more aware of what I'm saying, where I'm doing, what the camera is seeing, and things like that.
So are they paying, the company paying for your phone bill now that you're using it so much?
They pay for my phone bill, but not for the phone.
Do they really?
Yeah,
oh my goodness, OGS? Yes, hello? Yes, okay. Anyway, have you ever had an interview where you're, confronting someone about something, maybe they did something wrong, and essentially you're being the public, spokesperson, scolding them essentially?
Yeah. Those are a bit more terrifying.
Yeah.
Not all interviews are friendly. In a way, we call it a hostile interview. So
a hostile interview?
Yeah, in a sense that I know that this person is not going to be happy with the information that I pull out of them because they're going to end off looking bad in that sense. Quite recently, we did a story about people snooping on our devices. When you send it to the repair shop, your phone, your laptop, some of the shops snoop around. They look at your photo album, your other folders. And we had planted spyware and we had caught some of these shops. So I went back to the shops with the footage to confront them. I'm confronting. So I was a little bit scared. So I actually had a security. We hired a bouncer to come along with me because I didn't know how they react. But I think I still tried not to raise the tension. So tried to keep it at a very calm level. So I just went in very straightforward and said, I have footage to show that we found one of your guys doing this. Do you have anything to say about it? Just to avoid any untoward actions. Yeah. Does this raise any concern on your side?
Normally, I don't handle the repair or everything, so I need to go and check who is doing it.
Okay. So that's one way. Another way is sometimes I've had to do this before where confront someone in an interview like that. In that respect, we didn't have the pre-interview time. So we set up all the cameras and I told the guys, I will come in only when you're ready to roll. So I came in, hello, can I ask you a few questions? And went straight into it.
Straight to the hostile questions.
Straight away into the interview, which included quite a few hostile questions. That was intentional because once you allow someone to get to know you, then it's a bit harder also, right? Whereas if I'm a stranger, I'm just here doing this, then there is some distance between us.
Right.
We try to avoid having to make things seem very hostile because at the end of the day, in the show, we don't want to make people look bad. Even when we reveal that like water filters aren't necessary, they don't really work, things like that. The company's very upset with us, but we never reviewed the companies and in that case, the people didn't want to speak to us, so I didn't have to do such a so-called hostile interview.
Wow. In terms of the work that you've done, whether it's Talking Point or anything else, is there something that still stays with you, that lives in your heart? Yeah,
I would say many episodes have affected me, but for different reasons. And they're memorable for many different reasons. Of course, like traveling overseas, doing stories, like I did the one about Thai cave boys, that was a very memorable experience. We were doing a story about where the boys grew up and their homes, their background. So we went to visit one of the homes. The grandmother was home. She said, no, I don't want to do interviews. The local crew had come and she said, no. They were a bit aggressive, so she had pushed them away. But she said, but you can film his room and his jersey, football jersey, his stuff. So we filmed it and then we were just sitting around. She was here, I was there. And all this is with a translator because she only speaks Thai. And we're just very small talk. And then suddenly I sensed after about 45 minutes that she was kind of sharing a bit more. So I just kind of signaled to my crew, and they just kind of came round. We didn't move from where we were sitting. So very, just organically, that was the interview. That became the interview, because I just said, okay, so now, are you all right if we film this? And she's like, yeah, okay. And we just started talking.
สดใสแต่ว่าดำแดดเท่านั้นเขาฝึกหนักฝึกทั้งสมาธิแล้วก็เขานี่เรียนบทเรียนมามากแล้วก็
It was an interview we thought we weren't getting, but because we took the time to just be there and to, I guess she got a better sense of who we are, what we're like, she was more willing to open up to us, Yeah, so those kind of moments stick in my head because these are the kind of moments that you cannot learn in journalism school. You cannot, I had never, an interview had never happened like this before for me, But at the time, I was like, wow, okay, it kind of all came together.
And it's just about being a human.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like as much as, frankly, for you and your team, you're also there to get some work done. It's work for you. For her grandson is stuck in a cave. She was still stuck in there.
They were still there. Yeah. So
Horrible.
that's the worst thing we can do. Imagine, someone house just burned down. You go there. Oh, how do you feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think I feel?
Yeah.
So I think we try to be sensitive. Sometimes some journalists, sometimes you forget because you're so task-oriented, And I think that's very much what Talking Point tries to do. I mean, at least that's my style, that everything I look at, I discuss, I do, has to be in a way that people can relate to and that I would do on my own too.
Is there one that was particularly challenging
Wow.
for you? Which was the hardest for you to get through in your memory?
Okay, it was hardest for different reasons. Okay, so there was one episode about we had this polar bear called Inuka at the Singapore Zoo that passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
When the idea first came out, I mean, I like animals, but I wasn't like super like whoa, So I was like, okay, a bear. First of all, what's a polar bear doing in Singapore? All that kind of stuff. All those questions came, but then we started working on the story. I started interviewing the zookeepers, and it was such an emotional journey because so many of them had such a strong bond with the bear, having cared for it since its birth, and things like that. And I remember interviewing one of his zookeepers for the longest time, and he was telling me something, and he started tearing up, and I started tearing up too. So that was the only time I've cried on TV.
You want to do the right thing for your child. I mean, if your child is still suffering, do you want to see that? Do you want to see that him going through all that? Of course, it saddens me, pains, but
with Talking Point, the interviews are done live. We record it live. So I don't do a pre-interview. I mean, we check a few questions, but I'm not talking to him first and saying, hey, tell me the answer, and then we do the interview film. And because of the type of show, it's not news, therefore I can be a bit more involved. And there was no harm in me showing my emotions. I guess people say because as a journalist, you're supposed to be unbiased, So to a large extent, we try, but no human being is ever fully impartial or unbiased. We all have some biases.
Yeah. Out of all the stories that you've already covered, is there anything you haven't done yet that you actually have a lot of interest in touching one day?
Oh, wow. One thing I've been trying to do with my own personal life is to learn how to make Hokkien Mee.
Hokkien Mee.
Yeah, because I love Hokkien Mee, And I've been trying to use my Skills Future to sign up for a course. I like cooking, but I do a lot of the roasts and things like that. But because I like Hokkien Mee and also char kway teow, so either one will do. So I've been trying to sign up for a course to learn how to do it properly. Yeah.
Oh my God, if anyone can find a Hokkien Mee or char kway teow Skills Future course, can email Steven Chia at CNA.
I know there's a Skills Future course out there. I just haven't been able to sign up for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and my attempts so far have been,
There needs to be a Talking Point episode where you try to find the best Skills Future course to make Hokkien Mee.
Oh.
There you go.
Well, I think that one's too challenging.
So let's move. I know every time they speak to you, it's always a million questions about Talking Point. But you're so much bigger than that, right? I mean, you do so many other things. You also have a podcast that you do.
Called Deep Dive. That's
Deep
right.
Dive, yes. Similar, would you say, just deep diving into topics and...
Same, but different. So actually the topics that we cover on Deep Dive and Talking Point are very similar. Issues that we feel will affect people in Singapore. So Deep Dive is a podcast, but it's also filmed, so you can see it on YouTube as well. We sort of support each other. So sometimes the discussion starts in Talking Point and then it continues in Deep Dive. Where
a deeper convo.
Yeah, because it's Deep Dive, right? So we go deeper. Yeah. And then, of course, among all that, is the fact that I'm also known for telling lots of bad dad jokes. Because I find that humor is so important to making everything more enjoyable.
Dad joke?
No, but I mean, we just did a podcast about the sort of cinema industry struggling here in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And so I was talking to my wife and she was like, hey, shall we watch Doctor Strange for movie night? I said, no, I don't think so because I have stranger things to watch.
I thought you were sharing a serious story at first. Yeah, your kids still love it?
No, I think they're immune to it now. It's like water off a duck's back. They don't feel it anymore.
Does your wife love it?
No, I mean, it's cringeworthy. They're like, but I always say it's so bad it's good, right? You know. But I find that with me, I need to enjoy my work. I'm very fortunate. 80% of the time, I enjoy what I'm doing, and whenever I moderate a conference, I moderate a panel discussion, I still feel that if you watch any of the stuff I do, there'll always be some laughter along the way, because I feel that humor is such a powerful tool. It helps you get points across in ways, if it's a sensitive issue, you can laugh about it, and everyone kind of knows why you're laughing about it, but you don't have to actually address the issue in that way. So I think that's something that we lack here. Sometimes we think that a serious discussion must be serious, but you can laugh about serious matters too, and still have a serious discussion. So that is my own personal style, that I feel that it's very important to have some element of, not say fun, but just humor, or to be able to look at things in a different perspective, you know. And when you can laugh about something, I think that helps everyone accept it a little bit better. Knowing that this is my style and what works, and my bosses know that too, so that certain topics they find resonate better when I present it versus other topics, you know. So I think that is just unique to each of us. We're all unique individuals. So not everybody will like what I do, not everybody will like watching me, but that's life, right?
Yeah. Is it fair to say, so I experience you as quite a people person? Is that fair to say? Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, as in a nice people person.
Yes. Yeah. Is there a mean people person?
I don't know. Yeah, you know.
So let's be honest, right? Okay,
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of people
Yeah,
who...
let's be honest. I am a really nice guy.
Yes. So honest. Yes. So nice. There are people who, when you reach a certain level in your career, or when you're busy, right? Or even as simple as when you're front-facing and then you start to get in your head a little bit about certain things, they can be not very nice, right? For you, was that something that you always, had at the forefront, which is I have to continue to be normal and nice and human. I cannot ever be, this, oh, look at me, I'm Steven Chia.
No, I've never ever felt that I've become this Steven Chia, I'm very much the same guy. I mean, and I think for me, one of the greatest compliments I got was sometimes when I meet people and they go, after they talk to me, and like, hey, you're just like the guy on TV. I'm like, yeah, I'm the same guy, right? You know what I mean? So there's no persona. I'm not acting. I'm not putting up a front. And I think, yeah, it's much easier to be yourself all the time. Otherwise, if I have this fake persona, then the moment I'm out of it and someone catches me with that, then they'll be like, oh, this guy's a fake, So yeah, there's basically no need to do things in a mean way. I think if we are generally nice people, then people around you will be nicer too,
Yeah, everything's just easier.
It's just easier, yeah. And if you know this guy's a nice guy, you're not going to come to work and go like, oh, I'm going to work with this Steven Chia again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel it's important to be generous also, to be generous with your time, to be generous with your compliments and just reaffirming people around you, just saying, hey, thanks for that, Sometimes we forget from one of our overseas shoots. Coming from Singapore, you're like, okay, Day 2, I'm going to have 5 shoots. What a plan. The moment you arrive there, and then I was in Indonesia, they're like, oh, hello, come to the factory. Oh, please come to the office and meet my boss. And we sit down, come, let's have some coffee. So basically, there was a lot of time spent doing these other things, which were formalities for us. But actually, when I thought about it, it's just part of the way they work, it's their culture. And it's nice to sort of say hello, get to know someone before you dive into things.
Yeah.
Whereas in Singapore, we tend to be very cut and dry, Yeah, so that was one important lesson. So now, when we go overseas, we always plan less because otherwise it's crazy, right? You can never make it or finish it on time.
Yeah.
But that was an important lesson in the way we relate to people. And I try and do that now instead of just coming in and saying, okay, come, let's do the interview.
Yeah.
Spend a few minutes, talk to the person, get to know them. Give them a chance to get to know you. Then you get a better sense of how the conversation will go.
Yeah. So besides the main work that you do, there are many organizations that you've also volunteered your time for, been board members for certain things. So I won't mention the list of organizations because if not, it'd be a 3-hour-long episode. But maybe, editor, you can put it somewhere here, all the logos. Okay, but the themes that I see across all these organizations, generally, there'll be themes of family, marriage, the media, youth and community. So why these topics? Why are you interested in working in these spaces?
I guess it's just that over time I found that I am conscious about that because family is so important. If you don't have a happy family at home, so many other aspects of your life suffer because you cannot just compartmentalize them, separately. Yeah. And I think with so much of that's happening in the world today, there's so much noise out there, there's so much happening online. our youth are very vulnerable. So one of the things I do a lot is to go out and speak at schools, because the message is just that there's so much out there. Just kind of think twice before you just jump on the bandwagon. Don't look at a TikTok feed and go, oh yeah, that's so horrible, why are they doing that? I mean, go and understand the issue more, read up a few more different news platforms, understand why it's happening that way. So I feel that is something we need to sort of be a bit more aware of. And I think that's what I try and do in my role of, as a journalist or not as a journalist. It's just, my job is, I'm a messenger. I'm there to help people have a better understanding of certain things that might be happening, whether it's got to do with the news or even in your own personal life. I mean, now I have this job which is sort of kind of a public. Then if that can be used for the good of something, then I'm more than happy to lend my face to that.
Yeah, what you just said, there's one part of that struck me a little bit. Yeah. You said that if someone doesn't have a happy home, there's no way they can be happy outside. You can't compartmentalize. Yeah. Earlier on in our conversation, you talked a lot about how your kids are under a lot of stress already at school, whatever CCA, this and that. You don't want to be an additional layer of stress for them. Is that very important to you to create a happy home at least as a foundation?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. The home needs to be an environment that supports our children no matter what they do. And I remember Gurmit Singh, who came out and shared about his daughter, and I think it's very important that regardless of what path our children take, we must still love them. We must always support them. The kids need to feel that somebody has my back. I mean, even till today, I know that if at some point there's something really devastated, for some reason I get kicked out of my house, I can go and stay with my folks, right? So you need to have that kind of sense of support. Yeah, because otherwise I think life is very hard. Yeah.
So how do you actually put this into practice when they live in this country, in this system?
So we try and do stuff together, do things together, and one of the things I used to enjoy doing the most when the kids were young is taking them to the supermarket.
Oh yeah?
Because I used to work the morning shift, so in the afternoon I'll do the groceries, I'll bring them with me, wear him here, go supermarket, so that was an enjoyable experience, and they still remember it till today.
Just being a part of your actual life rather than segmenting, okay, this is kid time, this is work time, grocery time, just having them be with you.
Yeah, just spending time with them, getting them involved in stuff. Just love your kids, and they need to know that you love them and that you're there for them. I think if we can do that, a lot of other things will kind of fall into place.
So both for people who are already parents as well as people who are maybe currently taking exams, currently living in that space of, I'm a little bit stressed about my future and my grades and my school and all that. So with everything that you've put in practice with your kids, right? This mindset of love is the core. Yeah. Let's not get too stressed about anything else. How have you seen them develop based on how you and your wife have raised them?
Oh, well, of course, we're a bit biased, right? I mean, they're our own kids. But no, I think they've turned out all right. That'll be it. I mean, like I said, again, the expectations, we try and include them in planning out what it is they want to do or getting them involved in stuff. It's not like, go and learn the piano because I think you need to learn the piano, Like, both our kids play drums.
Wow, loud house.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, and my son really enjoys it now. He's even got his own band at school, It's giving them the space to try stuff and not just forcing what I guess we think is good for them. Yeah. Sure, I'm not saying leave it free for all. There must be some guidance, and that is our role as parents to help guide our children. But at the same time, give them room to breathe and room to experiment, because we actually learn so much from trying and doing. And in fact, failing, you learn even more, which is something we as an Asian culture, especially here in Singapore, still struggle with, this fear of failure. But if you ask any entrepreneur out there who has done well, they've tried, for that one project to succeed, they had 10 failures before that, for instance. So I think that is something we are yet to embrace in our sort of culture here in Singapore.
Well, on that note, thank you for being generous with your time and your energy and your stories today.
Thank you.
So many of them. Thanks for coming on and hanging out.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's been great coming here. And you want? I can end off with one more dad joke.
Better say.
No, so, this one's a more local one. I think, there was one time a bunch of guys wanted to go watch a movie, and then he saw the sign, then he went off, and then he came back an hour later with 17 friends, and then they all went to watch the movie. Do you know why?
Why?
because the sign said under 18 cannot enter.
Cut the camera. Cut.